Hello everyone, and welcome to my presentation about independent schools and getting a job at them and why you should work at these wonderful schools. I must tell you that when I was sitting where you are today, 20 years ago or nearly 20 years ago, I had no idea that I would be where I am today. I am the headmistress of a wonderful all-girls school in Ottawa, Ontario called Elmwood School, and we have 350 wonderful young women. We're located in the nation's capital in Ontario, Canada, and I feel very, very fortunate to be where I am today. I absolutely love my job, and when I look back over my career in independent education, I have had a wonderful, wonderful experience. So the purpose of this presentation is to tell you a little bit about myself, but more importantly, give you some practical tips and tools in order to get that job in an independent school. So first of all, just to say that I really didn't appreciate almost 20 years ago when I was in Teachers College just how fortunate I was to have my teacher training, because it could take me anywhere. I originally started off working in the public education system. I taught for 4 wonderful years in the public system, and then I decided that I wanted to travel a little bit and see the world, and I took a leave of absence in order to do that, and I never looked back. So I encourage you, when you're sitting there thinking about what your career looks like, and especially if you're young and you don't have any roots, I really encourage you to take a risk and look outside your city, look outside your province, and look outside your country to see what wonderful opportunities there are for you as a teacher. One thing that I really didn't know very much about, and I'd really encourage you to look into, is the possibility of working as a teacher at a boarding school. There are many excellent boarding schools in Canada, but more importantly, there are some great boarding schools abroad. And because so many of their pupils live on site, they need staff to live on site as well. So there's often excellent accommodation. If you are willing to work in the boarding house, you can end up living rent-free and your meals are included. Other times, you might, for example, live in a small apartment on site, pay some minimal rent, and you might also have the opportunity to have your meals at school as well. So that can be a wonderful base for you when you're living in another country, and if you don't have to go through the trouble of finding somewhere to live, it can be very, very helpful indeed. You also have wonderful facilities. Again, when you look at this picture of Bedford School, which is one of the schools I taught at, you can see what a beautiful place it was. And there were all sorts of other things that we had access to as staff: swimming pools, fitness suites, theaters, and so on. So again, excellent facilities. And the other thing that I really didn't appreciate is that there are some very generous vacations at these boarding schools. I had 18 weeks off a year, 2 weeks off in October, 3 weeks at Christmas, a week off in February, 3 weeks over Easter, a week at the end of May, and then my summer vacation. So I really used to work only about 6 or 7 weeks at a time before I had some time off. So it was wonderful if you wanted to travel, and you're really just a stone's throw away from a lot of wonderful places in Europe. So those are 3 really great reasons to consider boarding schools. If you do want to look at jobs in the UK, I suggest you look at the Times Educational Supplement, which is a newspaper for teachers in England. They also have overseas jobs as well, and you can see from the sheer number that there are a lot of opportunities for teachers there. eteach.com is another one. Again, fewer jobs, but both teaching jobs in the UK and abroad as well. March through May is really the key recruiting season. So you're not too late for this year to start getting a position lined up for September. And don't forget, sometimes what can happen at schools is they can have their teacher lined up for September, and then something can change in someone's life and they're unavailable. So if you're prepared to even travel and be available in June, July, or August, you could find yourself being in the right place at the right time. You also can sign up to be a supply teacher. I did that initially because that was my job security in going over there, although I never ended up teaching as a supply teacher because I got a permanent job at an independent school. But I think it's another excellent opportunity. I just would suggest that you make sure you've got excellent classroom management skills if you're going to do that, because it's very tough moving to another country with different curriculum and different expectations. And to be a supply teacher, I think, is a very, very tough job. So make sure you're ready to handle it. And the International Baccalaureate organization also posts jobs, so that's another place that you can look at as well. So on to independent schools in Canada, and there's a little shot of my lovely grade 2 students. Again, when I was sitting where you are today, I had a lot of preconceived notions about independent schools, and I really didn't ever think that I would end up where I am today. But when I reflected back on what my own experience has been in independent schools, I would say that it has been an experience that I would not substitute for anything else. These are the sort of things that I felt in looking back made the job that what it was, and the reason why I have stuck with it. I'm one of those people that actually gave up my job in the public school system because I loved independent schools so much. So you've really got to step away from the stereotypes and make your own decisions, and I think you'll be pleasantly surprised by what you'll find. And just another point, again, I didn't know about this when I first started out, but make sure you understand the background or the basis of the school. Some schools are what I would call independent schools, which means that they are not for profits. And some schools are private for profit businesses. And I think it's important that you understand the difference. In the case of Elmwood School, I am the head of school, the faculty and staff report to me, but I report to a board of governors, and we are a not-for-profit, so it means the decisions we make are not for the sake of making money, but was for best for our students. So it's worth asking some questions, because there are some excellent private for-profit schools, but there are some where perhaps the motivation isn't quite as honorable, so it's worth checking that out. So some resources in Canada, I would definitely suggest you check out the CAIS website, Canadian Accredited Independent Schools. And there are some wonderful jobs on there right now for something called associate teachers or associate faculty or teacher interns. And what those jobs are, they're one-year positions at these excellent schools, and you get an excellent opportunity to hone your skills as a teacher by working alongside a teacher mentor. And it really is a wonderful way to get yourself some experience before you take on the full-time responsibility of being a teacher. You can also check out the Conference of Independent Schools website, and they're having a careers fair on the 3rd of March. And of course, you can apply directly to schools as well. Okay, some quick advice about how to get that job. First of all, I think it's very important that you know who you are applying to and what are their unique philosophies, what's their vision for education, because all of these schools are unique and different. It's important that you understand what that is about those schools. Then tailor your cover letter for that school. I think there is nothing worse than a letter that I am sent that says, "Dear Sir," or "To whom it may concern," and then just the most generic letter about teaching. I just feel that if someone can't be bothered to take a look at the Elmwood website and do 5 minutes of research about who we are and what we're all about, then that's not something someone I want to have working at my school. So I think it's really important that you personalize your cover letter and tailor it to that school. Then you need to sell what makes you unique, what makes you different. And just another quick tip, there are a lot of people who email us every week looking for jobs at the school, and we have people who phone and insist on trying to speak to me or turn up unannounced wanting to speak to me. And as much as I really do want to encourage people to go into education, I just don't have a schedule that means that I can stop and talk to someone who's a candidate, especially when I typically don't have any jobs. I have very low staff turnover. So there are better ways to get your foot in the door than that. Quick note about web-based portfolios, because I think this is really the way of the future, and here's an example of one you can take a look at. Use really simple design, some great text, but more importantly, find some videos of yourself teaching. I would like to see people who are excellent teachers. I like to see students making great progress. You have to be careful with your videos. You don't want to violate anyone's privacy, but you can have a video camera focused on yourself and you can hear the students in the background, and I can judge whether or not you're a good teacher. Include some lesson plans, perhaps some longer term planning, maybe images of students' work. Make sure, again, you protect people's privacy. But really what I'm looking for is, who is this person and why do I want them to come work for me? What makes them special or unique or different? And I think it's really possible to do this in a website in a way that a paper resume just can't do it. So I would really encourage you to do this. I know it's a bit unorthodox, and some of the teachers' colleges are not suggesting that at all, but I really do think that it's been my experience that this is something that I really gravitate towards. So I think it is a good strategy if you want to stand out, and particularly if you're applying overseas, because those people might be interviewing you by Skype and they might not meet you face to face until the first week of school. So I think this is another way to really showcase who you are as an educator. Quickly, what am I looking for when I am interviewing someone? these are some quick ideas that I jotted down, but those things I think are really important, and I'm looking for the whole package. Absolutely an excellent teacher, but I'm looking for someone who's really going to be invested in who we are, what we're all about, and those things really make a difference to me. Quick tips about the interview as well. I find most people do not prepare adequately for an interview, so I think you have to think of it as a test, and so you have to study for it. And one of the things you need to study are your stories or your examples that you're going to use to illustrate what an amazing teacher you are. I would prepare 3 to 5 stories, and I would have them at hand, and I'd be ready to work them into any single question I could be asked. I also find people ramble sometimes. 3 to 5 minutes is really the maximum length of an answer, and you really have to watch when you're being interviewed through Skype, because you're not in the same room and you're not picking up the body language, so you don't ramble. As well, we get a number of portfolios. People bring in these big Bibles, 100 pages. Please don't bring anything too large, or if you do insist on bringing something very large, have some post-it notes earmarking a few things you would like to show that perhaps are part of your stories. That's in the second bullet point. And as well, please make sure you proofread it carefully. There's nothing worse than applying for an English teaching job and having a portfolio that's full of spelling mistakes. You'll lose the job in a heartbeat, and it's just not worth it. As well, there's always the question at the end of the interview, do you have any questions for us? Make sure you do. Jot them down, come prepared, and make sure that if we have uncovered something in the interview, that your questions gives you an opportunity to say something more that perhaps hasn't come out in the interview. And as well, I would suggest that you send a thank you email confirming your interest, because again, it's a little personal touch at the end, but I think it goes a very, very long way. So that's it. I wish you luck. I hope it goes very well, but I tell you that it's a wonderful world of opportunity out there for you, and even though there might not be a lot of teaching jobs right now in the province of Ontario, there certainly are a lot of opportunities worldwide. So go out, enjoy it, and as they say, do what you love and you will never work a day in your life.